For the women that you work with, what's the first step? What's the first thing that you ask them to do to begin that journey of reconnecting with themselves?
Is to think back like what they used to love, right? What was it that you used to love to do that you no longer do? And surprisingly, it's answers like, I used to love going and working out, or I love going and running and having that solitude or those moments to myself. And they forget that. They've put all of it on the back burner because they got to get the kids to school, they got to make dinner, they got to do whatever else they're doing. But they've forgotten the little things that used to bring them so much joy, be it exercising or running or going to hang out with girlfriends. They've put on the back burner because it's not important. I'll do it later.
Hi, I'm Glennis Woods Mullins, and I love to help women to vibe, to be more vibrant, intuitive, beautiful, and empowered in midlife. So come on, let's vibe. Many of us, as we approach this whole midlife journey, begin to start thinking about things that we can do to peel back the layers and figure out who we really are. There becomes this need, this quest for figuring out the trauma we've been through and how to heal that trauma and getting in touch with parts of ourselves that maybe we've put way back on the back burner because we were so busy playing so many roles in so many people's lives. This is so common for women over 40. And at some point in time, we began to start thinking about the possibilities of what it would be like if we were the first one to be considered instead of all these other people. That's why I'm so glad to introduce to you Jennifer Robb, or Jen Robb. She is a nurse practitioner, an author, a coach, a wife, and a mom, lots of roles there, and the woman running a very small farm with more animals than logic would suggest. Life is full and a little chaotic for her, but she has established some deep and meaningful things that she feels that women need to know by putting a mirror up to women and helping them resolve some of the issues that happen as we begin to get older. She has spent over 20 years in the medical industry in high intensity acute care. And during that time, she has really begun to take a look at the root causes of what happens with women and psychology wise, and what kinds of answers that we can begin to establish for ourselves. I think right now we've talked so much about theory over the last 20 years with the self-help and everything else. We really want some clear cut to do answers in terms of, now that we've identified what the situations might be, what do we do? And Jen Robb is the person that's going to do that for us today. Jen, thank you so much for being in the V.I.B.E Living podcast. It's wonderful to have you here today.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. I mentioned that we all play so many roles, and then I read all the things that you do, including a small farm with, which was, what did you say, more animals than probably is a good idea. How did you come to add this to your list as helping women hold a mirror up to themselves and to begin to heal?
I struggled, our daughter struggled a lot with mental health, like in her between 12 and 16, severe anxiety, depression. And watching her kind of go through that struggle, but then also having to be everything for her because I was the one that she was with all the time. And I remember looking and waking up and looking in a mirror one day, like several years in, and not recognizing who I was. I was 40 pounds heavier. I had spent so much time at the time trying to keep her alive, right? That was my whole goal, was to keep her alive. And I just lost sight of who I was. And so then the mission became, okay, how do I figure out and get back to who I am and what my God-given purpose is, right? And a lot of times those purposes, they shift over our lifetime because, like you've already said, we've had so many roles. We're moms, we're wives, and we put everybody else before us. And so once we got her to a place where she was, then I could start to focus on, okay, how do I get back to finding who I am and what I'm supposed to be doing, which is now helping women find themselves, right? And helping them through women's health in the medical space, hormones, the whole thing, right? How do we get back and take care of ourselves and put us as priority?
Yeah, and I guess we both could agree. I think we're on the same page that when it comes to midlife, that midlife journey and taking a look at your overall wellness, you really have to approach it holistically because it's not just the body. but the mind and the spirit are such an intangible part of the transition that we go through. Why is that?
We're whole beings, right? We're mind, body, and spirit. And that's how I try to approach when I talk to women in the clinic is we have to get back to that, right? I don't want to just see you for your symptoms or see you for what your complaints are, but we have to look at it. How do we heal you mind, body, and spirit, right? Because we are all one person. And I think it's more important that we look at whole body because that you're treating the whole person then, right? You're not just treating a symptom of anxiety or depression or brain fog. We're actually treating the whole person and trying to make you feel whole again and look back at and I think the other thing is helping women evolve into who they're becoming, right?
Yes,
The same person that we were in our 30s when we were in the midst of raising children and all of those things. The women that we become in our 40s is I feel like the woman that we were always who were designed to be, right? I once heard somebody say that it was like the midlife person that you become is the 16-year-old that you always were, but too afraid to be.
that's true because at 16, you probably put it all out there. You go after what you want. You don't have the same kind of filters and everything that have been established.
But now in midlife, we're like, okay, our roles and our identities are evolving, right? Because we're no longer mom and yes, we're still wives or spouses to whoever, but a lot of that is changing. Some of us are becoming grandmothers, some of us, and our whole role and purpose in life has shifted. And I think for a lot of women, it's very hard emotionally and mentally sometimes as those roles start to shift. We don't know how to let go of the roles that we've always held on to, right? And
Yes,
so we are whole people. We have to deal with, especially as medical providers, dealing with the emotions that they feel and still trying to support their bodies for the hormonal shifts and everything else that they're going through.
absolutely. And you mentioned earlier that at a very critical time in your daughter's life, you really had to make her your focus. And it's interesting that you said that because you also said that at some point you realized that it was time for you to disconnect and nurture yourself and in an effort also to help her grow as well. How did you know you had to reach that time where you were ready to start doing more things for yourself?
Like when we finally gotten her to a place where she was mentally healthier, right? She didn't have the anxiety and the depression, and she wasn't fighting the want to stay alive anymore, right? And then it became, okay, I have to take care of myself. But at the same time, when I thought about it, what was I mimicking for her? If I'm not taking care of myself, I'm stressed out, I'm not sleeping, I'm gaining all kinds of weight, I'm not taking care of my health and my own wellness. What am I mimicking for her?
Right.
Right? Because she's watching everything I do. And at some point, we have to realize that what we do and how we act becomes more important than what we say to those that are watching us. And for her, I wanted to mimic self care is important, right? And I don't mean just going to the spa or getting your hair done or your nails done or any of that. Like really taking care of yourself, right? Putting yourself as a priority as opposed to being completely last. And at the end of the day, no one else is going to think about us besides us, right? That's what
Sure.
women do, right? We take care of everybody all the time at the risk of putting ourselves completely 100% last. And then we're literally pouring from an empty cup. We have nothing else to give. And it wasn't until that point where you're like, I don't know who I am. I'm 40 pounds heavier than I've ever been. I literally felt like I had nothing left. So the shift had to happen. It was either that or I was going to continue to crumble. And so you have to pick yourself up and you're like, okay, I am priority now. I love you. I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to help you. And I think the thing that women have to get past is that they think that self-care is selfish, right? Or putting yourself first is selfish, but it's not, right? We cannot be everything to everybody if we have nothing left.
That's true. That's true.
And you can't pour from an empty cup. And but that doesn't mean that you have to go sit in a spa for 8 hours and be gone from the family and all of that stuff. It just means putting your health and your own wellness above everything else at this time in your life. Because at some point, you're not going to be needed as much as a mom or whatever anymore. And you're going to have to pivot from that. So you have to figure out who you are and where you're going and what you're going to be.
That is so true. And it's sometimes difficult, as you said, for women to even get into that mind space. So, for the women that you work with, what's the first step? What's the first thing that you ask them to do to begin that journey of reconnecting with themselves?
Is to think back like what they used to love, right? What was it that you used to love to do that you no longer do? And surprisingly, it's answers like, I used to love going and working out, or I love going and running and having that solitude or those moments to myself. And they forget that. They've put all of it on the back burner because they got to get the kids to school, they got to make dinner, they got to do whatever else they're doing. And then most of these women are working at the same time, right? We're not just, most of us aren't just stay-at-home moms. We have careers and we have other things that we have to do, but they've forgotten the little things that used to bring them so much joy, be
Right.
it exercising or running or going to hang out with girlfriends, even things like just going out to dinner once a week by themselves with their girlfriends, they've put on the back burner because it's not important. I'll
I
do
think
it later. I'll do it
right,
later.
right. And later never comes. Later becomes
Right.
tomorrow, and tomorrow never comes because it's today. And next thing you know, you haven't done it. One of the things that's really interesting about what you've done is that you've written a book about your experiences in terms of dealing with a teenager that was having mental health issues. The name of the book is called Warrior Mom Rising, a mom's battle plan to advocate. Many of the listeners here are between 45 and 55. So they either have teenagers in their home or they have grandchildren who are teenagers. What kind of advice can you give those parents who are dealing with a teen that appears to be having some mental health issues? How do they help them through this and also take good care of themselves at the same time?
First, you have to take care of yourself, right? Again, you cannot pour from an empty cup. You have to remember that your priority, even if it's 10 or 15 minutes a day, like you have to find something that recenters you. The other thing is for midlife women, there's a lot of things, other things happening in our bodies, right? We're shifting, our hormones are shifting. There's a lot of now imbalances that you need to have evaluated, right? That's what we do in women's health. In having good support for your own health and wellness is going to help you navigate and be able to deal with the things that our teenagers throw at us, right? It's very hard to deal with teenagers in today's world. And so taking care of you and your own health and wellness, but also for not forgetting to advocate. You know your child better than anybody, right? And so if you feel like you have to pivot, if you're not getting what you need from counselors or psychiatrists or therapists or even their medical doctors, then you need to pivot. And it's okay to find someone else. It's okay to say, you know what, you're nice, but you're not exactly what we need. And advocating for your child and becoming their voice, that's most important. And that was one of the things that I really figured out along the journey is she couldn't advocate for herself. She didn't want to be up. She didn't want to be alive at the current moment. So advocating for her to get her the help that she needed is what I had to do. But in order to do that, I had to be taking care of myself and getting myself healthy and well in my mind in order to go into those scenarios where I was fighting battles for her.
And that's why you call it the warrior mom.
Mhm.
But you were not just warring for her. You began over time to understand the importance of warring for yourself and
Right.
making sure that you stayed whole.
And so now, like in my practice as a nurse practitioner and dealing with just women's health, it's about building warrior women, right? Because there's always going to be a battle that we have to fight, right? At the end of the day, we all know that life is going to continue to life, right? There's always going to be ups and downs no matter what we go through and how old we get. But when we are better equipped to take care of it, mind, body, and spirit, right? And we take care of our own health and wellness, then we can handle the life stresses a little bit better when they come at us.
Yes. And I know a little bit about what you're talking about. I have four daughters. They're very close in age, and they're all now in their late 30s and 40s. But basically, for 10 years, I was pregnant, basically. So they were very close. I had what they call Irish twins that were like within 10 months of each other. And I was very blessed. They were really great kids. I didn't really have any challenges with them overall, but the challenge in general was just learning how to meet the needs of each child because they were all different. They look a lot alike, but they're all very different. And I finally got to the point at the age of 63. I'm 68 now, but that was 5 years ago. At the age of 63, I finally realized when my youngest moved to Texas to be with her husband, who was not able to come to California to have her, because she was pregnant, to deliver. They thought she would deliver here, which I was great. I'm mom, I should be there, right? And then she would come with the baby. But she decided that she didn't want to do that. Now, granted, my daughter was almost 30 years old at this time, okay? So she's and had a son already. But still, I'm feeling like as a helicopter parent, I need to be there. And I was so upset. But she went ahead and relocated, found a gynecologist, everything was fine. And I wasn't there because when she went into labor, I couldn't get there soon enough. And that began my wake up call that the kind of warring that I used to do with children who were in the home and younger and all that had to change. And so now you never stop talking. I hope you never stop talking with your children. I talk to all four of mine every single day, all of them together, and then all of them individually when they call. There's a lot of phone calls, but that's just what we do. But I had to learn how to disconnect and learn to parent in a different way, to become more of a coach instead of a hands-on parent, to also realize that they were fully launched, they're capable adults now, and also to let go of some of the trauma I experienced as a parent, things that I couldn't do that I wanted to do, to let that go. Because whenever I bring it up, they're always like, Mom, it wasn't that big of a deal. It wasn't their issue, it was my issue. So I learned to start beating up on myself for things that I couldn't do that I felt that I needed to do because those were self-imposed expectations, not necessarily their expectations, and also to allow them to go through some of the bumpier parts of life. Because how else are they going to learn? And I could hear my mother's voice in my head so many times telling me that at some point you have to release your children. Otherwise, you start going through the same adult issues with them that you've got. They've got taxes, you've got taxes. You have cars breaking down, they have cars breaking down. All this they have husband issues, you've got husband issues. And after a while, you have to stop and reframe your relationship with your children. And when I talk about that, it really makes me think about the moms you say that you've worked with that almost feel invisible when they're trying to help their child. And I can relate to that too. Sometimes you feel so powerless in terms of what you can do. How do they reclaim their voice? How do we come back from that and reclaim our voice?
Part of it's just learning to stand up for yourself and saying enough is enough. I'm not going to be last anymore. I have to be first. And again, it just comes back to you cannot pour from an empty cup. If you don't take care of yourself, how are you ever going to take care and model good behaviors, good, healthy behaviors for those that are watching you? And it's just like anything else. Women, we want to control every aspect of everybody. We want to control our lives. We want to control our children's lives. And I don't think we ever stop doing that. That's just because that's who we're ingrained to be. But part of it is like learning that you don't control everything. It's impossible to control and be everywhere all the time. But it's like you said, as we raise our children, we set them up with good behaviors to go out and to launch into the world and to be good, productive members of society, right? That's the goal. But you have to remember that they're still always watching you. For me, I wanted to model good behavior for my children, right? We pay our bills on time. We show up for our jobs on time. We do all of these other behaviors, but self-care and taking care of you, that's a behavior, right? And what I never wanted, I have two sons and I have a daughter. So my two boys are the older. But one thing I never wanted for Chloe, my daughter, was to see that she had to be put last because she's a woman. Like we live in a very kind of, I think, a very paternalistic society, right? It's
Yes,
really a lot about men. And
absolutely.
as women, we want to take care of our men. We want to take care of our children. But I never wanted my daughter to realize, to grow up thinking, to be a good mom, I have to be, I have to lose complete sight of who I am. And I think that's like the bigger driving force is I don't want that for her. I would never want her to be in a relationship or have her own children where she thinks that she's not important enough to be taken care of.
That's interesting too, because it is a cakewalk. It absolutely is in terms of keeping that balance of being a role model, because I was very conscious of that they were looking at me because I looked at my mom. And it's interesting because when I look back at the kinds of things my kids used to play when they were little, they didn't play dolls as much. They played office. They had their briefcases and their little organizers. I can never forget my youngest talking to an employee of hers about something, and it sounded like it was me. She was reprimanding her about coming to on time or whatever, which was really weird because I've never had that kind of a conversation in front of them. I'm at work. So I guess they hear bits and pieces of conversation that you have with your girlfriends or on the phone or with your husband or whatever. And it's amazing how that's planted into their subconscious and they draw their own correlations and then make their judgments. But I look back at that now and I'm so grateful. And it really does have a whole lot to do with faith, because faith is what kept me in this ball game of raising four kids. I was divorced after 13 years to their dad. And so I spent maybe not quite 2 years as a single mom with budding teenagers. That was crazy. And then somehow miraculously, I got blessed and we married a man who was willing to help with four teenagers, which is crazy when you think about it.
Daughters.
Yeah, and their dad was still around too. So that was real interesting dynamics. Not something I would recommend for anyone. But the thing that got me through was my faith. Where does faith rule in your life when it comes to dealing with your families and also how you minister to or talk with the women that you help?
Faith is a very large part of our lives, and it always has been. And I think many times I would not have survived dealing with Chloe and how she felt and that she didn't want to be alive
Yeah,
without having my own faith. But here's the thing that I've learned that's the biggest caveat to going through anytime at the end of the day, we've all been through experiences, some level of trauma. Now, there's varying degrees of that, right? Not everybody goes through what we went through with Chloe, right? And having she had been sexually assaulted and by another peer. Not everybody goes through things like that, right? But we all have our own experiences that make us who we are, right? The biggest thing is that I think you have to learn from that, right? And don't let it make you hard because you can learn through it. And one of the things that I know 100% is that there's purpose in the pain, right? Like we don't always know it when we're in the storm or we're in the fire, but at the end of the day, there's purpose in that pain, right? And God can use that purpose for his glory, right? And now, because of that, if had I never gone through that, I would have never wanted to help other women become their own warriors, right? So we don't always understand it. We don't always know why we're going through what we're going through. But if you allow it to teach you, then you can see something greater at the end of the road. And I
yeah.
think that's really what it's about, right? It's not just being stuck in the pain. You've got to move through it and then you can come out on the other side and then you get to help other people because you never know who you're going to meet or who's going to be struggling with what you've
That's
gone through.
true. That's true. I don't know. I look at life, it's like going in and out of labor. You go into labor and it hurts a little bit, and then it progresses and it hurts a lot. And you're thinking, I will never survive this. There's no way in the world I'll never do this again. But on the other side of this is this bliss, this joy, this euphoria that comes, because at the end of that pain is this beautiful bundle of joy. And then the baby grows and goes to the next thing. They say, I'll never do this again. And I'm going through all these changes with my kids. But on the other side of that is the wow, they've made it. They're functioning members of society, and I'm still in one piece. It's really all about the pattern of life, but it also, midlife involves a lot of reframing, especially when it comes to dealing with children, because it's easy, as you said, for you to lose yourself and their issue becomes your issue. So it's really good to be able to work with someone like you, Jennifer, that really makes a difference in women's lives to help them mirror back to themselves. And for those of you who want to get in touch with Jennifer to find out more about her practice and the things she does to help women, we have her website on there as well as all of her social media. And also there's a link that goes to her book, Warrior Mom Rising, a Mom's Battle Plan to advocate. Boy, I know there's a lot of the listeners out there who need that book. Jen, thank you so much for being here on the V.I.B.E Living Podcast. It's been wonderful having you here today.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thanks to all of you for listening. I really enjoy it when we get a chance to talk with women who have had experiences that many of us have gone through, but at the time we're going through it, we think there's no one who could possibly understand. Now, here we are with Jennifer talking about what she had to do to help advocate for her child and herself to arrive at a place of mental health and mental wholeness. So please go ahead and take a look at her website, her book, and also come back again and take a look at all the other podcasts that we have. We have over 170 podcasts of women who are talking about issues that are going to help you to vibe, help you to be more vibrant, more intuitive, more beautiful, and empowered in midlife. Thanks so much for listening. Have a fantastic day, and don't forget to vibe. Bye-bye, everybody. Thanks for listening to the V.I.B.E Living Podcast. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment, and share this podcast. Have a fantastic day, and don't forget to vibe. Bye-bye, everybody.